Our top focus as of now, the coronavirus crisis in the United States is far from over. The number of Americans dying each day from COVID-19 now stands as high as it did during the Delta variant peak. However, very strangely, the latest advisory coming from the CDC for travel to other countries, including India, rather exposes the hypocrisy of the United States. The CDC has issued a Level 3 travel health notice for India due to COVID-19, indicating a high level of coronavirus cases in the country. Let's talk purely numbers at this point. The graph on your screen shows the 7-day average of COVID cases of both India and the United States. The 7-day average of cases in the United States, as we can see clearly, in the beginning of this month was more than 2,600% higher than India. And as of January 25th, the 7-day average of cases in the US still stands over 100% higher than the case count in India. Yet the United States is issuing a travel warning for India, whereas it probably should be the other way around. Last week, the US reported twice the number of new cases and almost 3 times the number of deaths due to COVID-19 when compared to India. So the big question is, why is the United States fear-mongering over India's COVID situation, where certain states still have strict restrictions imposed to curb the spread of COVID-19, unlike the situation in the United States? Not just this, the CDC has also cited violent crimes in India in its travel warning and asked its citizens to exercise caution. All this is quite rich, coming from a country where one child is shot every hour. The country's gun violence epidemic is killing more children than ever before. According to the CDC data, murder rates in the United States exploded in the year 2020 during the pandemic, up 30% from 2019, the largest single-year increase in 100 years. The numbers have continued to rise in 2021. Murders in the United States in different cities were near record highs last year. The rise in violent crimes across the country is now one of the biggest challenges that America faces today. While the world witnesses lawlessness gripping the United States, both its current and previous administrations, be it from former President Donald Trump or the current President Joe Biden, they have both focused more on situations in other countries rather than solving its own issues. The biggest question is, from coronavirus cases to crime rates, what gives the United States the right to create fear about other countries like India? And is it time for other nations across the world to issue similar warnings for its citizens traveling to the United States, where cases are surging? For a bit more clarity on the situation, joining us now is our correspondent Susan Teherani from New York. Susan, thanks for joining us. My first question for you, why has the United States decided to issue this advisory in your view when the US administration has been promoting opening up of businesses? Besides the fact that the data, as we just showed our viewers, for both the United States and India when it comes to COVID and crime is more grim when we talk about the United States in particular.
So this is an administration that has really focused on COVID from the very beginning and has always said that it will not shut the country down, it will shut COVID down. A lot of slogans we heard from the Biden administration since it took office. And here we are really trying to move past this pandemic, and this administration really hasn't been able to keep its promise, and the American people are catching on. So one theory right now among many experts is that they're trying to deviate that attention and move outwards, as we saw in the case of South Africa when it did come up with identifying the Omicron variant. It got punished by really having a travel advisory touted against it, despite the fact that it really found a cure for it. And now we're seeing that really implemented among other countries as well, where you see cases are coming down in other countries and cases rising in the United States. But you see the CDC, where it's supposed to be a non-partisan organization, really focusing on outwards and deviating attention outside of the United States because it really wasn't able to handle its messaging and handle the situation inside the United States. And that's one of the issues right now, where when you can't really handle what's happening here, you look outside. That's very clear cut. And what's interesting is, once again, despite trying to find solutions with therapeutics and whatnot and focus on the messaging, again, in that travel advisory, it focuses on vaccines, and that's something that this administration has been hammering on. And whether or not individuals and U.S. citizens decide to take the vaccine or not, one after the other polls indicate that they've made up their mind. So whether or not the CDC or the Biden administration pushes for Americans to get vaccinated, they've made up their mind. Either they will get vaccinated or they won't. And I think that what causes more confusion.
Right, we have some technical difficulties there. We'll try and get our correspondent Susan Teherani from New York back on this broadcast as soon as possible. For now, the top story that we are tracking in WION Fine Print at this hour is that while coronavirus cases are surging in the United States, related deaths are also surging. The United States has now issued a travel advisory against India, despite India reporting a decline in its own COVID cases. Now, we have our correspondent Susan Teherani back on this broadcast from New York. Susan, coming back now, clearly from what you just said, what you're stating essentially is that the U.S. is trying to deflect attention from the fact that there has been mixed messaging from the CDC when it comes to guidelines to curb COVID cases on its own soil. Just elaborating on this discussion a bit, recently data surrounding gun violence was released based on comparison between Trump and Biden's first years as presidents. And the findings were startling, to say the least. 5,000 more deaths in the Biden tenure. Is the administration concerned about this fact?
The administration, again, time and again, has been really focused on trying to clear its image that it's soft on crime, because this is an administration that is trying to move away from the image of being associated with the defund the police movement, which really took rise during the George Floyd protests, if you remember, last summer. Those were mostly Democratic voters and supporters of the Democratic Party. And Joe Biden has really tried to move away and steer clear off that by saying that he does not want to defund the police on the one hand. On the other hand, he wants to allocate some of that America Rescue Plan to funding more police forces around the country, and on the other hand trying to be quote unquote more tough on crime. The problem with that is we're not seeing a decrease in crime across the country, and just the past few days in New York we're seeing 2 police officers being killed. Unfortunately, we did see the president talk to our new mayor Eric Adams, offering his condolences, but ultimately what we're seeing right now is an administration that's struggling with a high crime rate, something that is very important to the Americans after inflation, after the coronavirus, trying to curb that, and it's something that he would have to really Joe Biden has to focus on if he wants to get a handle not only in passing his controversial gun laws on Capitol Hill, right, but also winning the hearts and minds of the American people for his party moving in 2022.
Right. Susan Teherani, a correspondent from New York. Thanks so much for all those inputs, and thanks for joining us on WION. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.